Properties of addition. We have 4 properties of addition that we're going to talk about: the commutative property, associative property, additive identity, and additive inverse. First property is the commutative property. The commutative property says I can change the order of my numbers. 2 plus 3 is the same thing as 3 plus 2. They're going to say something like x plus y can equal y plus x. I just switched the order of my expression. On here, 8 plus x equals x plus 8. That's my commutative property. I'm just going to put a 1 in the box. You could write it out if you want to. On Alex, you'll have a drop down and you'll pick which is the right one of the 4 properties. Associative property says the order has to be the same, but the parentheses are moved. An association is a group. You have to use grouping symbols, which are parentheses. So if there's not parentheses in the problem, it's not going to be the associative property. Associative property says x plus y plus z has to equal x plus y plus z. On one of them, I'm going to have parentheses around the first 2. On the other side, the parentheses are going to be moved. So it's going to have 2 different things in the parentheses. Here I have an x and a y. Here I have a y and a z. My associative property, I moved the parentheses. I did not change the order. Additive identity property. When you think of your identity, you want to think about like looking in the mirror. What I start with should be the same thing I'm looking at, right? So if I'm going to add something to 3 and still get 3, I would add a 0 to it. My additive identity property says if I add 0 to something, it's not going to change its value. So the example is going to be something like x plus 0 equals x. I added 0 in that problem. Additive inverse. Oh, I better do that one. Here, we got one. We have one with the additive identity. We didn't have a commutative. Additive identity, we added 0. B plus 0 is still B. So that's my third property, the additive identity property. Fourth property, additive inverse property. Inverse means opposite. When I add a positive and a negative of the same value, 3 plus negative 3, I always get an answer of 0. So when I add opposites, x plus negative x, I always end up with an answer of 0. So this is an example here of my additive inverse property. 7 plus a negative 7 gives me an answer of 0. There's my additive inverse property. So number 20, we have 6 plus 7 plus b, 7 plus b plus 6. So a lot of people will look at that right away and say, oh, it's got parentheses. It has to be the associative property. It is not the associative property, because the associative property says the order must remain the same and what's in my parentheses is different. Here I have a 7 plus b and here I have a 7 plus b. The stuff in the parentheses is the same. What did they do? They switched the order. They have the 6 first here and they got the 6 last here. That's actually going to be your commutative property, where I've changed the order of my values. The next one, I look at that and I say, oh, they added 0. That's my big clue. If I add 0 to anything, I get the same thing. Additive identity is when I add 0 to something. Now I look at the next one. It kind of looks like that top one, but look. I have 8 plus a plus 4, 8 plus a plus 4. The order of everything is the same. The 8, the a, then the 4. But here I have the a plus 4 in parentheses. Here the 8 plus a is in parentheses. I've got 2 different things in the grouping symbols. That's my associative property. So you want to be careful, because sometimes they try to be tricky and make you think, oh, it's got parentheses, it's associative property. But with the associative property, the order must be exactly the same, and then what's in the parentheses is different. So we're going to do one last one here, at least of the properties, and we're going to pick out what properties we have. So 3 plus 7 equals 7 plus 3. They've just switched the order around. Commutative property. 9 plus x plus 2 equals 9 plus x plus 2. My order's the same. Here the parentheses around the 9 plus x. Here it's around the x plus 2. I've changed what's in my parentheses. That's my associative property. Here I'm taking a b plus a negative b. I'm getting 0. I'm adding opposites, which is my additive inverse property. Number 4. If you have trouble with the properties, look on the front page to see what number sheet I have. Go to the resources and find Linda's note sheets. It will have more words instead of just the examples, which might make it a little easier.